Hari Om. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham parabrahmarupam ganesham bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to session 101 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse to continue study of chapter 13. Today, we will take up the verses 21 to 25 of this chapter, in which we will study Prakrti and Purusha, which forms the last part of Arjuna's query. We will have chanting of these verses at the end of the class. Now, I request Sri Villas to give a brief recap of verses 16 to 20, which we studied in our previous session. After the revision, we will have the introduction of the day's topic by Dr. Hegde sir. Now, it's over to you, Villas.
Thank you. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have seen in 13th chapter, there are 6 questions that Arjuna asks Lord Krishna. And right now we are on the answer of 4th question, which is what is Jneyam? What is that is knowable? There is only one thing in the entire universe which is worth knowing, and that is what is Brahman. Because that is the cause of everything, that is the substratum of everything. So now Lord Krishna is talking about what that Brahman is. And how do we know about something which we don't have too much knowledge about? For example, if somebody wants to know who is or not already knowing about Sachin Tendulkar, then you would say that he's the man who scored so many centuries, or you would say some things which he's not about, that he's not somebody who would get out so easily. So we would talk about certain things that can ultimately illustrate who that person is. So here we are talking about Brahman. So there are different examples which are being used to showcase how that Brahman we can infer. So Bahirantascha Bhutanam Acharam Charamevacha says this Brahman is inside also and outside also. It is far also and near also. So there is a lot of seeming contradictions here in this whole verse, but the most important keyword here is seeming. So let's just take this example which Swamiji takes, is that when we see the hand, the light is there on the hand, but isn't the light there where the hand is not seen? It is not appearing to be seen, but when we move the hand, it appears to be seen there also. So light is actually everywhere. It is just unmanifest in the other places, and it becomes manifest when that medium moves around. So this medium movement, mediums inside, outside, all these properties and all these vikara and guna they belong to the medium, but the medium is necessary for this substratum, for this principle to express itself. And so many times all the attributes of the medium, they get superimposed upon the substratum. And that's why we feel as if the substratum is going through all these changes. For example, it says it is far as well as near. It says it's unmoving and moving. For example, if we have a pot and there is space inside the pot, there is space outside the pot also. Now, when the pot moves, it seems as if the space inside the pot is also moving. But the thing is actually the pot is moving inside the overall space, because we think we see the pot and then we analyze everything according to that. That is where we see that, okay, the space as if is moving. So similarly, I am conscious, you're conscious, the person sitting next to you conscious. But Upanishad says that there is consciousness all over. It's inside the body also. It is outside the body also. In fact, we all are inside, the body is inside consciousness. Far and near is like, for intelligent people, for wise people, it is very close. It is nihitam guhayam. It is in the cave of our hearts. But for an unwise person, the Lord is sitting somewhere in Vaikuntha. We have to travel n number of janmas for n, like you can go on millions of miles and kilometers, will never reach there. So it is far for them. So these are all based on what is our vision, what is our attitude at looking at these things. This is based on our standpoint, that these things will look different. So there is a lot of seeming contradiction. There is a lot of things that which appear to be so, but they are not. So what exactly is Brahman is? That it is everywhere. It is indivisible. It is inside also, outside also. And then the question being asked is that, okay, if this Brahman is everywhere and we always see this, then why am I not able to perceive it? The thing is that it is not perceivable by sense organs, because sense organs can only perceive either Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. But this one is beyond that. For example, if we say that Akash does not have rasa, doesn't mean Akash does not exist. So if all these attributes don't exist, doesn't mean that consciousness is not there. So it is very much there, but it is unknowable through our sense organs in our general way of perception. In the next verse, again, he talks a little bit about how Brahman is indivisible. For example, in disco light or in lighthouses, there is actually one main source of light, and then there are so many different holes around that light. So when the light comes out of those holes, it appears as if it is divided into so many different streams of light. But if you actually inquire and if you go beyond those holes, which appear to be there, which are very much there, we cannot deny that the light is coming in so many different streams. That is our practical experience. But on inquiry, we find that actually there is only one source behind them. So even though it appears as though it is divided, but it actually not divided, it is undivided, it is avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktimeva cha sthitam, and bhuta bhartricha tajna. So he is also the creator, sustainer, and destroyer, because the thing is like everything comes out of him only. It is just everything is manifesting from that Brahman only. So honestly, these all things are also kind of misnomers only, that it is a creator, sustainer, and destroyer. But it is for our easier understanding that water is the creator of waves, it is the sustainer of waves, it is a destroyer of waves. Actually, waves don't really exist, it's only the water that exists. But because we perceive, seemingly they appear, that is in our practical knowledge of field of knowledge. That is why we say, okay, water is the creator, sustainer, and destroyer. So he again mainly tries to say here that he is the substratum, he is undivided, he is the one which is upholding everything. In the next verse, in the next slide, Jyotisham api tajyotihi. In many of these, like Kena Upanishad also, we have seen that it is the light of the light. So light in Upanishadic terms means something that illumines something, by under the presence of which something gets known. That let us throw some light on this subject. Words are also sometimes light, because they also express some kind of a feeling or a thought. So light here means something which helps illumine certain parts. Now, what is the one thing which illumines everything? One thing which is even more subtle than what we see as light. Light is used here as an example. For example, one beautiful story is being told that sun is always going around the earth because it is in search of darkness. And wherever sun goes, wherever the light goes, the darkness is not there. But consciousness is something which illumines even the darkness, because only because of consciousness we know what is light and what is even darkness. When we have thoughts in our mind, that is also known by the consciousness. When there are no thoughts in our mind, that is also being perceived by the consciousness only. So that is the ultimate light of all the lights. All these sense organs, light is like or sense objects, light is sense organs, then mind is the light for them. Ultimately, the light of everything because of which we know of anything is consciousness only. That is the one thing which illumines everything. Intangible cause appears as tangible effect. Everything that we see tangibly is the universe, which is the tangible effect. But the intangible cause for everything is again Brahman only. And this is the one which is Jnanam Jneyam Jnanagamyam. This is the one which is the knowledge also, which is the Jneyam also, the instrument also, the destination also. Because again, water is everything. We cannot differentiate that, okay, wave is this and then tsunami is that. But at the end of the day, water is everything. So all these things is Brahman only. And in the next verse, in the next slide, he's mainly talking about that, okay, this is the knowledge about Jnanam Jneyam, and this is how people get situated in me. And in the next verse, he is now introducing the concept of Purusha and Prakrti, which is what is going to be elaborated in today's class. in which Purusha and Prakrti are pretty much how we studied Kshetrajna and Kshetram. The conscious part of it is the Purusha and the matter part is Prakrti. Purusha and Prakrti, they become Ishvara. That is the combination. Like Brahman plus Maya becomes Ishvara. Then there are many things which are common between these two, or maybe one thing which is common between these two, and there are many uncommon features also. The common is that these are both are beginningless. It says Anadi Ubhavapi. Both of them are Anadi. But there are certain other things which are uncommon. Vikarascha. Consciousness does not go through vikara, changes, but matter always goes through changes. Consciousness does not have any attributes, no guna, but matter always have so many guna. And it is chetana, it is conscious, it is inert, matter is inert. Consciousness can have its own existence, it can stand by its own, but matter always needs consciousness behind it to be expressed. So now in today's class, we'll deal more into the details of Purusha and Prakriti. This was the recap. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Ulas, for giving us a very nice summary of clearly the most difficult part of the entire Bhagavad Gita. This is the Jneyam portion, where Krishna says this is something worth knowing. Jneyam is something worth knowing. And in a series of seemingly very paradoxical verses, Sri Krishna has told us what is worth knowing. And at the conclusion of the last class, which is actually the introduction to today's class, Sri Krishna is introducing the same thing in a new format, what is Purusha and what is Prakriti. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. I have spoken about this many times. For only one reason, we know all this. But there is a big gap between Jnanam and Jnana Nishta. And hopefully by the end of the 13th chapter, we will be working on that model of Sri Dakshinamurti. This Jnanam, this knowledge, this Jneyam, this something which is worth knowing is going to be there not only during the class, but in between classes also. As I keep my feet on the ground, I will remember these Upanishadic teachings, these fundamentals of Vedanta. The first fundamental Vedanta I need to remember from the time I wake up till I go to fall asleep is, I am clearly other than whatever I experience. I am Atma. Everything else that I experience, including my body and mind, is Anatma. Second and most wonderful to remember, to relish, to celebrate is all attributes that I experience belong to the experienced object, including the body and mind. The real me, am free from all attributes. I am Nirguna. In today's class, we will be touching really a little more on what is this Nirguna. In this chapter, the same Atma Anatma Viveka is spoken of as Kshetra Kshetrajna. And today's class, we will see the same topic being handled as Purusha and Prakriti, which in the Upanishads and in the Drik Drishya Viveka is spoken as Drik Drishya Viveka. If I am other than what I experience, few corollaries will come, which we need to remember. I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am the witness of my body-mind. Because of my body-mind, I am able to interact with the world. This body-mind is only an instrument. And because it is an instrument, whatever happens to my body and mind can affect my functioning in the world, but it cannot really affect me because I, as Atma, I am of a higher order of reality. I am Asanga, Asanga, Asangoham, Asangoham. This is actually because I, as Atma, I have no attributes. I cannot be affected by the aging of my body because the real me is there from the very beginning. If there is a beginning, it will continue even after this body drops because I am Nitya. Because of this body, I have a feeling that I am located in this place. But the real me, as explained earlier by Ullas about this hand and light example, the real me extends beyond the body. It is all pervading. Difficult to believe, but that is true. It seems that I am limited to this object, to this body, but by the same understanding, the body is only an instrument, an ID through which this Atma or the consciousness is able to function for interaction purposes, just like a person is doing a drama on the stage. Then who am I? I am all. If I know all that, why do we still suffer from samsara? Because in transaction, that means the moment I conclude this class, the class is over, we tend to come back to our baseline level, where the avarna shakti of Maya tends to involve or affect my body. I become identified with my body. And once I become identified with my body, then the error of, that means this is called adhyasa. Whatever affects my body and mind seems to affect me very clearly. What do I need to repeatedly tell myself? Aham Chaitanya Swarupaha. I am of the nature of consciousness. I am Swatantraha. I exist independently, and therefore I am Satya. Everything else is a dependent existence, that is Mithya. I have no attributes, therefore you can claim I am Nirguna. As described already, I am Nitya. As described already, I am Sarvagata. I am one. That means I am in everybody. Atmau pammena sarvatra samam pashyati. Very important, if you want true freedom, is the realization that I am asanga. That means I am transcendental. I am of a higher order of reality. Anything that happens to my body, mind, my possessions, all that I have some attachment to, cannot really affect me as long as I remember myself. I am indivisible. Again, as Ullas described the spot, space, room, space example, space within the room, or whether this whole room is within space. And important is, the real me can never be objectified. Now, why I cannot see the Atma? Because the Atma is not other than me. It is the real me. And this is what is the meaning of the word aprameya. In these classes, this is the nishta that we need to say. I am train my mind to use those mahavakyas. Aham brahmasmi. I am Atma Brahma. Tat tvam asi. Prajnana Brahman. Let these mahavakyas be in our mind. Sarvendriya gunabhas. Through every organs, I am able to experience myself only. Pratibodha viditam matam. We should catch on to one or two phrases and let that be the shruti of my life. I have a certain role to play. And what do? Play those roles not seriously. Whenever I forget my true nature, the role play becomes very serious. But then because these roles are also important, how do I play my roles? I play my roles sincerely. Nobody needs to tell a teacher or a doctor or a parent what to do, because I, as a student of Vedanta, I know all these are role play. It is not something I can take it casually. I have to play these roles 100%. So my whole job is Drik Drishya Viveka, Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka, Atma Anatma Viveka. And in today's class, we will see what is this Prakrti Purusha Viveka. The same knowledge in a new capsule. Sukanya will explain to us. Sukanya, please.
Hariyo. Sri Krishna completes 4 topics: Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Jneyam. Now, in the next 2 topics, he conveys the essence of Vedanta, Prakrti Purusha Viveka. The verse goes like this: Karya Karana Kartritve Hetuhu Prakrti Ruchate. Purushaha Sukadukhanam Bhoktrutve Hetu Ruchate. Prakrti Uchate Hetuhu. Prakrti is said to be the cause of Karya Karana Kartritve, creation of physical and subtle bodies. Purushaha Uchate Hetuhu. Purusha is said to be the cause of Bhoktrutve Sukadukhanam, experiencer of pleasure and pain. Next slide, sir. Prakrti is said to be the cause of creation of physical and subtle bodies, and Purusha
Video
is the
not on.
cause.
Sorry, Sukanya, sorry. Your video is not on.
Can I continue?
Please, I think you should start from the beginning, I think.
Sorry. Hari Om. Sri Krishna completes 4 topics: Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam and Jneyam. Now, the next 2 topics, he conveys the essence of Vedanta, Prakrti, Purusha, Viveka. Karyakarana kartritve hetuhu prakriti ruchyate. Purushaha sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. Purushaha prakritihi uchyate hetuhu. Prakriti is said to be the cause of Karyakarana kartritve, creation of physical and subtle bodies. Purushaha uchyate hetuhu. Purusha is said to be the cause of bhoktritve, sukha dukkhanam, experiencer of pleasure and pain. Prakriti is said to be the cause of creation of physical and subtle bodies, and Purusha is the cause in the experience of pleasure and pain in the physical and mental body. Next slide, sir. Prakriti is the basic matter principle, Purusha the conscious principle. They are the same as Maya and Brahman. Both are anadi, beginningless, and are together the cause of the universe. The fundamental difference being Purusha is Nirguna, Nirvikara, Satya, Chetana Tattvam, and Prakriti is Saguna, Sakara, Mithya, Atechana Tattvam. Prakriti is Maya, Shakti. Everything in creation that we experience, the entire world of objects, the physical body, the mind, the various attributes of the body and mind are all born of Prakriti. Next slide, sir. Karya Karana Kartritve. The word Karyam here refers to Stula Shariram, which includes 5 elements. Karanam refers to the instruments within the body, Pancha Gnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Prana, Mana Buddhi, Ahankara. All the 3 gunas, 5 sensory perceptions, Raga, Dvesha, are all the products of Prakriti. Prakriti Guna Sambhava. Mind is one of the refined products of Prakriti, which includes different mental states, comfort, stress, conflicts, etc. The attributes born of Prakriti are transferred to the mind effect also. Next slide, sir. Karana Guna, Karyam Anuvartate. Likewise, Prakriti Guna, Prapancham Anuvartate. All experienced attributes belong to Prakriti and not to the subject Purusha. As per the law of Vedanta, Purusha eva idam vishwam, the entire external world of experience with names and forms, which I experience is none other than Purusha, the conscious principle within me. I am different from what I experience, and all attributes belong to the experienced object Prakriti and not to the experiencer Purusha, subject. Next slide, sir. How Purusha becomes Bhokta? The entire experience objects of the world, the physical body, mind, attributes born of Prakriti are inert products of Maya, Achetana, which continuously undergo Vikara. Maya is the creative power of Brahman. Purusha, the conscious principle, is unchanging. Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve. Purusha actionlessly witnesses the experiences. Chapter 9.24 also indicates Purusha as Bhokta. Aham hi sarva yagnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha. Next slide, sir. Here, Bhokta is indicated as receiver of all forms of worship by the people who seek finite results. But in this present verse, Purusha is indicated as Bhokta, the experiencer of attributes born out of Prakriti. All changes happen because of Prakriti. Purusha, Sakshi principle, is so intimately associated with the body that it appears as an integral part of the physical body. Example is the spectacles. Though an object of instrument, it appears as an integral part. That is why Purusha appears as Bhokta. Prakriti and Purusha contribute to the cause of samsara. How? In 2 different ways. Before creation, there was no subject-object transaction. Ishvara alone was there. The entire inert universe, including the physical body, mind, evolved out of Prakriti. Prakriti thus contributes to the objective world of experiences, Bhogya Prapancha. Transaction started because of Purusha. With the evolution of the physical body and mind, the all-pervading, unenclosed consciousness got enclosed within the body mind without itself undergoing any change. Prakriti being the container, Purusha the content. The enclosed Purusha in association with the body and mind, becomes bhokta of the sukha dukkha experiences of the world. In conclusion, the first line of the verse explains contribution of Prakrti to samsara in creation of the objective world of experiences, including the physical body and mind, and the attributes as bhogyam. And the second line of the verse explains passive contribution of Purusha by getting enclosed in the body-mind complex as bhokta, the experiencer of the attributes, with a new name given as Jivatma Kshetrajna. Does this knowledge of Prakrti and Purusha Viveka help us put an end to our suffering? The next verse will answer this. Hari Om.
Thank you, Sukanya, for giving us a nice explanation between what is Purusha and what is Prakriti. And nicely, you have put up the same question. Does this knowledge of Purusha Prakriti distinction in our daily life, and if you can understand it, can we help us to be able to overcome our problem of samsara? You touched on the question of bhokta also, and how when Purusha becomes a bhokta, it becomes a cause of samsara. We will see how this whole topic will be discussed in the subsequent presentations. Vasanta, please.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. At the beginning of chapter 13, we have discussed how the Purusha is the conscious principle, inactive and detached, which lies behind all active states of Prakriti as witness or knower of the field. However, in this sloka, we will see how Purusha can get caught in the web of attachment to the gunas born out of Prakriti and get stuck in the samsara chakra of birth and rebirth. Purusha prakristho hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Meaning is, residing in Prakriti, Purusha experiences the gunas born out of Prakriti. Attachment to the gunas is the cause of birth in superior and inferior wombs. Prakritistha Purusha. The all-pervading Sat Brahman or Purusha, which appears enclosed in the body-mind complex created by Prakriti, is referred to as Prakritisthaha, or the one residing in Prakriti. The body-mind complex appears to be the container of Purusha, as though giving it Vyavahara Yogyam. Then Bhunkte Gunan Prakriti Jan. Bhunkte means witnessing in this context. Bhunkte Gunan Prakriti Jan means the Sakshi Purusha witnessing joy and sorrow from the gunas born from Prakriti. The gunas we are referring to are Sattva Guna that causes Sukham, Rajo Guna that causes Dukkham, and Tamo Guna that causes delusion. Purusha is the pure witness or Sakshi Chaitanya, untouched by all the creation of Prakriti. But as Purusha gets more enmeshed in Prakriti's Maya, it mistakes Prakriti for itself and moves from witnessing to experiencing the Prakriti created gunas. Swami Paramarthananda ji gives the example of a person mistakenly treating the spectacles he wears as a part of himself and not something separate. This superimposition of another's attributes is called Anyonya Adhyasa. Guna Sangaha. When the Purusha forms attachment to the gunas or becomes Guna Sangaha, Purusha starts experiencing joy, sorrows, pain, and grief. Guna Sangaha Karanam Asya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. This attachment to the gunas is the reason for the Purusha to start acquiring vasanas in each life, and these vasanas lead to the Purusha being born in Sad, Asad, Yoni, Janmasud, that is superior or inferior wombs over and over again in the samsara chakra. Superior wombs are those of devas and inferior wombs are those of beasts. In between are the wombs of humans. Here is an example to illustrate what happens to Purusha. Let's take Anandita, a person who lives a peaceful and happy life, totally detached about everything in her life. One day, Anandita's friend invites Anandita home and they watch a Hindi serial together. Anandita identifies with the heroine in the serial and feels all the heroine's emotions. So Anandita goes up and down in her emotions along with the heroine during the show. And after the show, she keeps thinking about the heroine. So Anandita starts watching the serial daily and becomes totally obsessed by the serial. Her peace of mind is shattered, and her happiness is fully dependent on the pains and sorrows of the heroine in the serial. This is exactly what happens when the Purusha, who's the detached, blissful witness, starts getting attached to gunas created by Prakrti. If Anandita were to stop watching the serial, she can reclaim her blissful lifestyle. Similarly, the way for us to avoid or overcome this pitfall is to gain knowledge and dispassion with renunciation. Through Viveka, we need to discern what is permanent and what is impermanent and learn not to get entangled in the impermanent. We have to reclaim our Nirguna, Nirvikara, Sakshi Purusha. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vasanta, for giving us a nice explanation to really tell us what is the benefit of knowing this knowledge. As Anatma, we undergo certain changes all the time. Swami Anubhavananda repeats this again and again. From the standpoint of Prakrti, from the body-mind complex, there is no permanent solution to any problem. Whereas from the standpoint of the Purusha, there is no problem. Therefore, what we need to do is identify yourself as the Purusha and play the role of Prakriti, just like an actor on a stage. And this is what we need to keep reminding ourselves all the time. And this is what is practical Vedanta. We come to one of the most beautiful verses. Dr. Sanjay Banakal, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Krishna is giving the description of Purusha and Prakriti from these verses 20 to 24. We have seen that Purusha is the consciousness and Prakriti is the matter principle. Both are without beginning and both together is the cause of this creation. Purusha is Satya, Nirguna, Nirvikara, Chaitana Tattva, whereas Prakriti is Mithya, Saguna, Savikara, Achetana Tattva. Krishna said, the ever-changing attributed world, including the body-mind complex, is Prakriti, and the one who witnesses or experiences the Prakriti is the changeless, attributeless Purusha. Because of the intimacy of Purusha and Prakriti, the attributes belonging to the object, that is Prakriti, are falsely transferred to the subject, Purusha, by an ignorant person. And that person suffers from repeated births and deaths, that is samsara. In the verse number 23, Krishna gives a beautiful description of this Purusha. Let us look at the verse now. Upadrishtanumanta cha bhatta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purusha paraha. The supreme Purusha in this body is said to be the proximate witness, the supporter, the experiencer, the great Lord, and the supreme self. Let us look at the meaning word by word. Krishna says this supreme Purusha is available in this body itself. It's asmin dehe, as the witnessing principle. He is supreme, Parapurusha. The consciousness is not only in the body, it extends beyond the body. Purusha is not limited by anything. Hence, he is free. So, he is free from all limitations. That's why he is the supreme. And such a Purusha is Upadrishta. He says Upadrishta means intimately pervading the body-mind complex. Just like the light that illumines the hand, which is intimately associated with the hand, Purusha is associated with the Prakriti. And this Purusha is Anumanta. means that which blesses the activities of the Prakrti. Just like electricity blessing the activity of fan, Purusha blesses the body-mind complex by its mere association. The next word is Bharta, meaning sustainer, supporter, or his Sthiti Karana. Consciousness is always the support of the matter. Purusha is supporting the Prakriti. Purusha being the Satyam and matter being the Mithya. Mithya is always the supported. Hence, Purusha is the supporter. He is also the Bhokta, the experiencer. Now here the word experiencer means, from the standpoint of an ignorant person, he's an experiencer. But actually, Purusha is not doing any action. He's actually witnessing passively. That is what is meant by Bhokta. Then he is the Maheshwara. For a wise person, this Purusha is a Lord. He is a Swami, which means he's free. He's a master. So body-mind complex alone is bound, and Purusha is never bound. He's ever free. That's why he is Maheshwara, and he is Paramatma. When I learn to separate myself from Prakriti or body-mind complex and its attributes, I, the Jivatma, will get the name Paramatma. If I take on the attributes of body-mind complex as myself, then I am Jivatma, the ignorant I. If I identify myself as the attribute-less Purusha, I am the Paramatma, the wise I. Since Jivatma and Paramatma are equated in this verse, Swami Paramarthananda considers this as a Mahavakya. Thank you, Hari Om.
Dr. Sanjay, this is a nice explanation of a Mahavakya verse. As we know, in the whole Bhagavad Gita, there are few Mahavakyas. This is a Mahavakya. And once we know this is a Mahavakya, it is useful to keep this in our mind. It should be in our memory. Read this 100 times. Upadrashta Anumanta Cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. If you know the meaning of each word, then as you keep chanting this Mahavakya verse, it becomes more meaningful to you. Upadrashta, like Upanishad. Upa means Samipe, near. The one who is the proximate witness. Although I am Parabrahma Paramatma, which is all pervading, I am the very proximate witness. I'm the one who is very, very close by, who's observing from a very close location. Every word is explained, but because these are so beautiful verses, I'm very tempted to touch upon them again. Anumanta, just like Anumati, that which allows things to happen. The Purusha in me, the Atma Tattva in me, is the facilitator which allows everything to happen, which is the Bharta, which is the support, which is the master, which makes things happen. This word Bhokta is a little confusing. Bhokta, as again explained by Dr. Sanjay, Vasanta, and Sukanya earlier, one understanding is the experiencer. The moment the experiencer identifies with the body-mind, the same experiencer now becomes a pramata, becomes a limited experiencer. And that is when you enjoy or when you suffer. So you can see this from the Paramartika angle. You can see this word Bhokta from a Vyavahara angle. The same experiencer is Parameshwara. And Sri Krishna so nicely says, Paramatma iti. This experiencer is none other than Kshetrajnam chapi mam viddi sarva kshetreshu bharasha. And this is Purusha Paraha. This is the highest Purusha. Beautiful verse, worth studying. We go to the next verse, which will be explained to us by Venkatesh Prasad. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The topic of Prakrti and Purusha, which Krishna started with verse 20, will culminate in this verse 24. Earlier speakers have already explained the first 4 verses, and let us now discuss the concluding verse on this topic. The verse proper reads like this. Ya evam vetti purusham Prakrutincha gunais saha sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyobi jayate. Here, Krishna points out that the clear knowledge about Prakriti and Purusha will give a person a great relief from the burden of samsara if I have made this discriminative knowledge and I have learned to claim I am Purusha and all the attributes belong to Prakriti. This is called Purusha Prakriti Viveka Gnanena Mokshaha. So, phalam he gives. Next slide, sir. Evam Vedti. Suppose a person gains this knowledge. The first knowledge itself is that I am a mixture of Prakriti and Purusha. Taking the example of hand and light, as Swamiji puts it, first when you see the hand, you will only say there is a hand. But it is not hand alone. There are two things there here. The hand is pervaded by a light principle. The light falls on the hand, it gets reflected, and according to the science, the reflected light travels and hits your retina. Similarly, when I use the word I, there is a Prakriti, there is a Purusha. This is my first level of wisdom. Therefore, Krishna says, suppose a person knows this clearly. Watch, Purusha means Nirguna, Nirvikara, Satya, Chetana Tattvam, and Prakriti is Saguna, Savikara, Mithya, Achetana Tattvam, as explained by Dr. Sanjay. Both of them are distinct notes. The separation between the light and the hand, we do not physically do because light cannot be scrapped out of the hand. The separation is an internal affair. It is not an external event. Similarly, body and Atma physically need not separate and you cannot. It is a cognitive separation, Purusham and Prakritim Veda. Next slide, sir. Not only that, he also knows Gunais Saha. He also knows that there are many attributes like fat, lean, old, bald, and hair. All are physical attributes. There are subtle attributes like anger, envy, fear, etc. They are all internal attributes belonging to Sukshma Sharira Guna, Sthula Sharira Guna, Karana Sharira Guna. So, I should know that all attributes belong to the Shariram, which is Prakriti, whereas Purusha does not have Sthula Sharira attributes. Body is fat, I am not fat. Similarly, all emotions. This is what Nirvana Shatka says, Name Dvesha Rago, Name Lobha Moho, etc. Next slide, sir. And once a person knows the whole life is a drama, then what is the advantage? Sarvatha Vartamanopi. Let him play any role in his life or in her life because life is a series of role playing. You cannot avoid role playing. The moment you are born, whether you like it or not, you are related to your parents as a child. You are related to siblings as a brother or sister. You are related a husband or wife, a brother-in-law or sister-in-law. After playing a beggar's role, if you take yourself to be a beggar, even after the drama is over and continue with the begging bowl, then there is some problem. You should know when to switch your roles, like you transform from father to son to husband, etc. It is not physical, but only internal. Sarvata Vartamanopi. Play the role required at that particular moment. Next slide, sir. Sabhuyo na abhijayate. Such a gnani does not have a rebirth at all. I do not have a punarjanma. And if somebody asks the question to a gnani, how do you know you do not have punarjanma? Gnani gives a very big smile and asks, where is the question of rebirth? I have understood I am the Atma, which does not have the first Janma itself. What is the definition of Janma? Sthula Sukshma Sharira Samyoga. And what is the definition of Marana? Sthula Sukshma Sharira Viyoga. In other words, body and mind snap their connection at the time of Marana. This traveling mind of Sukshma Sharira get associated with a new body of Sthula Sharira is termed as Punarjanma. Both body and mind are Prakritis. They get separated at Marana. But I have nothing to do with this separation or with the association of these two forms of Prakritis. I am Purusha, who doesn't have first Janma itself and hence no Punarjanma also. This wisdom is called Moksha. Through this wisdom, I do not get liberated. Through this wisdom, I know or I claim that I was liberated, I am liberated, and I will ever be liberated. Next slide, sir. With the 24th verse of the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna has completed all the 6 topics that Arjuna wanted to know: Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, Jneyam, Prakrti, and Purusha. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkatesh, for an excellent explanation of the concluding verse on this section. In the whole Purusha Prakriti and the entire 13th chapter comes to a very beautiful conclusion where Sri Krishna tells us with all the confidence as Bhagavan, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, and we wish that these words are true, and because we have Shraddha in the words of the Gita, that whatever is spoken by Shri Krishna is gospel truth, that if I know this knowledge, if I know the distinction between Prakriti and Purusha, if I claim that I am Purusha, then what happens? I continue to be alive as a Jivan Muktaha, but I am not going to be affected by anything that happens, and I go beyond the cycle of birth and death. Now, this knowledge has been given to us. How does this knowledge become a nishta? That we will see in the next verse, which will be explained to us by Dr. Sandhya. Dr. Sandhya, please.
Hari Om. Dhyanen atmani pashyanti kechit atmanam atmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some seekers see the self in the mind, with the mind, through the mind in meditation. Some others see through Jnana Yoga, and some others through Karma Yoga. From this verse, Bhagavan talks about Jnana Sadhanani and Jnana Phalam. And initially, he talks about a person who is realized, who understands himself, who has achieved moksha. And he talks about Atmani, Atmanam, Atmana Pashyanti. That is, in the heart of his hearts, in the core of his being, he understands he is Satchidananda Atman, that is, he's attained moksha. Of course, he has done that by going through several levels of sadhana, and now he has a refined buddhi, intellect, internal conviction, inner understanding, and so therefore he has achieved moksha. Let us remember that before a jnani comes to this stage, he has to undergo several processes: self-control, sense control, preparatory steps, Guru Shastra Upadesha. He has to understand intellectually, he has to then refine his mind, and then go on to a refined buddhi or intellect. Next slide. Now, Bhagavan also says that this may not be possible in this birth for all the people, and therefore, again, he enumerates the various steps of sadhana. Now, let us remember there are 5 major steps, and the first 2 being Karma Yoga, Saguna Upasana, and then Jnana Yoga, which we will talk about later. And all these steps are meant to remove the various misunderstandings, the various impurities in our mind, as also the various mental obstacles that we may have to achieving our end. For instance, in Karma Yoga, it is mainly for selfless service, mental cleansing, because all of us have very powerful raga and dvesha, kama and krodha, which are very major obstacles to spiritual progress. And Karma Yoga is the one that is mala nivritti, that is removes all these types of strong feelings by mental cleansing, so that we can go to the next step, which is Saguna Upasana. And Saguna Upasana, extrovertedness, restless mind is removed, our focusing power increased, and the mind is able to withdraw from all the various sensory desires into the internal self and able to focus the mind more. So Vikshepa Nivritti is happening. Leading on to the third step, which is Jnana, where Ajnana or ignorance or self-deception is removed. Jnana, as we know many times, comes under Shravanam, Mananam, and Nidhyasanam. In Shravanam, we have scriptural study, the Guru teaching from a competent Guru. All our doubts, our basic ignorance is removed. That is Ajnana Nivritti. And then we go on to Mananam. if we have any doubts or any intellectual obstacles, that is removed. So your intellectual knowledge, which we all have, should lead to an inner conviction that this is the truth and I am really the Satchidananda Atman. And so therefore, samshaya nivritti is removed by mananam. Coming to the third stage of Jnana Yoga, which is an inner conviction. Now I know who I really am. I'm no longer identified with the body-mind complex. All the old habitual responses of the mind and the old vasanas, which have been ingrained in our mind for many years or perhaps many lives, are all removed because of an inner understanding and inner conviction. Our habitual responses are all removed. This is done by nididhyasana. So at the end of nididhyasana, we should definitely become a jnani yogi and achieve moksha. There are two things to remember when Bhagavan talks about jnana phalam as also jnana sadhanani. First of all is that these steps are not mutually exclusive, but in any particular sadhaka, these steps, there will be some amount of shravanam, some amount of mananam, some amount of karma yoga, all going on almost simultaneously, but leading eventually to nididhyasana. And the second point we must remember is that Bhagavan keeps on emphasizing all these repeatedly so that we never forget, and it really goes down into the core of our being, our understanding, so that therefore we can achieve moksha in this life itself. Once we are born, we may start either from stage 1 or 2, 3 or 4 or 5. And this very birth, the question is how much can we achieve? And many start from stage 1 or 2 because kama, krodha and raga, dvesha, likes, dislikes, angers, desires are the most powerful obstacles because our sense of desiredness is there. And so therefore, many people start from stage 1 or 2. Those who have done prior sadhana may start from stage 3 or 4, that is those with a more refined mind. And if you have already done all the 4 stages, either in this life or in any other prior time, then you may achieve nididhyasana or inner conviction and understanding in this birth itself. That means you can get mukti in this birth itself. So Bhagavan is actually giving us a very sort of a confident thing that it doesn't matter where you are starting, keep on progressing, and not in this life, maybe in the next life or soon enough that we will be able to achieve the goal of our life. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, madam, for a very clear explanation of a verse which can be controversial if it is not understood properly. You have very nicely explained, as based on the teachings of Swami Paramatmananda ji, that there is only one way, that you have to go through all these sadhanas in a sequence. Use karma yoga to be able to get jnana yogyata, to be able to do upasana yoga, to have the mind available for you for as long as you can. Through karma yoga and through upasana yoga, we get jnana yogyata, and then be able to listen to the teacher. Now, depending upon our past sadhanas, our past lives, some people are able to get through Shravanam itself. Some people would need a little more time through Mananam, and some people need some more time through Nididhyasanam. And this has been very nicely explained through the verse and through your explanation, madam. So the next class on the 13th of June will be the 13th session of Disha, where we will be continuing our understanding of Karma Yoga. So it is nice that even though we are now in the 13th chapter, we have a recap of some of the earlier chapters through a higher understanding of the same verses. We will have a chanting of these verses by Aditi. Aditi, please.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Karya Karana Kartratve Hetu Prakrti Ruchyate Purusha Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoktratve Hetu Ruchyate Purusha Prakrististo hi Bhukte Prakriti Jan Guna Karanam Guna Sangosya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तः देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः या एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचित् आत्मानम् आत्मना अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे हरिः ओम् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम्.
Thank you, Aditi, for a clear chanting. Thank you, teachers of the day, for an informative session. Next Friday, on 17th June 2022, we will take up verses 26 to 30 in this chapter for our study. Before that, on Monday, 13th June, let us log in for Disha 13 at 6:45 p.m. Until then, Jai Sri Krishna. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.